Tanya Talks. Thank you for tuning in. Tonight, I am joined by three amazing panelists where we are going to talk about what it takes to have courage, the mindset that these individuals had in order to achieve their own personal success. Success is a personal thing. It doesn't have to be in business. It can be anything personal, but it does take courage to go after what you want. So tonight, I'm so happy to have with us joining in this conversation, mindset coach Tahira Prasad, physiotherapist Karen Rose, and real estate investor and broker Michael Yatt. So welcome everybody to the show.
Thank you.
So I just, I've spoken to each of you guys individually about your stories and your journeys. And I got to say that you guys have, I don't even want to use the word courage like the title says. You guys just have a set of something on you that is unheard of in order to be where you're at. And I'm looking forward to you sharing with our audience just what that looks like, that maybe there's somebody out there that can see themselves through you and be there. So Tahira, I'm just going to start with you this evening and just share with us just a little bit of why you decided and the challenges that you face in deciding to become a mindset coach.
Well, I've worked in the mental health industry for since 2015, and I went through quite a bit. And I think I would say that I had two mindset shifts in order to say that, you know what, this is something that I wanted for myself. I need to take care of myself and to overcome what I thought was blocking me in order to have found my own personal success.
So what did you find was blocking you?
I think for me personally is I found that I personally thought that I was blocking myself.
Okay.
I was blocking myself. I think that I had to overcome taking things personally. I had to overcome, I would say, saying no to certain things, to certain people. And I had to find my authentic self. I really did. And learning
so you had two mindset shifts, and what were those like?
Well, one was I was going to school. I was trying to get my degree. And I was working really hard at doing that. And I was also working 3 jobs. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. I was out of the house and I didn't come home till, let's say, after 10. I'm like, this can't be my forever. This can't be my forever. And if I don't make the changes necessary for my life, who's going to do that for me?
Right.
I needed to do that for myself.
And what was that like on the back end? Like, your parents have now watched you go through school. It's always that ideal that you're going to go out and get a job and work for somebody, right?
Yeah, you're right. And I know that they wanted the best for me, but I had to want the best for myself as well. So I needed to take those necessary steps to get where I wanted to go. And I would say the second shift where you asked, what was my mindset and where did I find it? Where did I find like another shift? Well, as you would know, the backstory of that would be my parents got in a terrible accident. And the day that they got into that accident, I had a switch. The switch was things can happen in an instant. So what are you doing right now? What is your mindset and what is your energy? What is your focus? It can shift in an instant. And I thought, I'm doing all of these things. I'm working all of these jobs. Okay, well, how can I become successful and enjoy the things that I'm doing?
Right. And then I'm sure after that, you answered those questions to yourself. I'm sure it was easy from there on in.
It was simple from the second time. It was very simple. Right. I would say very simple.
That light bulb moment when you realize, your parents, their life flashed before them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, wow. Well, thank you. And Mike.
Hello. First of all, thanks, Tanya, for having me on board to be part of the panel. And my story is I'm a real estate investor here in Toronto. I also work for a real estate brokerage called Dreammaker Realty. a friend of mine started it about 15 years ago. So I've been part of that team and part of that group for about 5 years, but I've been invested in buying real estate for over 10 years.
So if anybody needs a house or need any real estate, then you know where to go, right?
Absolutely.
You know exactly where to go.
Yeah, so Mike, share with us a little bit about your story and what it looked like for you to, and some of the challenges that you may have faced making the decisions that you made to be where you're at.
Well, when I first decided to, I mean, I'm not a very risk-loving person. So my background is economics. So I calculate and recalculate and I assess. When I decided to get involved in real estate, though, I watched what happened to my parents, kind of, similar story to Tahira. I watched both my parents, very highly educated individuals. My dad has a PhD in chemistry. My mom practiced law. And when I looked at their lives after 20 plus 30 years of just being in the careers, I just didn't get it. I didn't understand why they weren't a lot further ahead than what I assumed that it would be based on the stories that a lot of us, have been told about going to school, get good grades, get a good job. So I started exploring different things around 2008, and it was a lot easier because the economy had shifted drastically. The US housing crisis was happening, and a lot of people were kind of having a moment like what they're having today, which is they're taking a look at what they're doing in their careers, in their lives, and they have to make some hard decisions. So in 2008, I started going to events, started going to seminars, getting around people that maybe, had, different mindsets, thought differently in terms of the world and life and money and so forth. And I was fortunate because I wasn't really looking for it, but because of the state of where the market was, it was hard for me to find a job. And then once I started diving more into it as well, then I kind of understood that, to get and create the life that I wanted to have, I needed to become an entrepreneur.
Mm.
So I started in, trying different businesses for quite some time. Along that same time, a friend of mine started a real estate company, and I kind of laughed at him in the beginning because we were both in economics, and I didn't understand why he wanted to put up signs and show houses when I thought we can just go work in Bay Street and make a lot of money that way. And so 3 years later from that conversation, he had been involved in the industry for 3 years and he had become a millionaire. So at that point, I became a lot more open-minded.
The money talks, right?
money in the results talks. But I was involved in that wasn't my focus at the time. So I said, okay, let me get involved in the industry. Let me become a client, find a way to, buy real estate and get my career started that way. And then if it works out, then I can always jump in, get licensed and start servicing clients. And it was a lot different, 2008, 2009 than it was today. And, but more so there were circumstances around the environment and the timing, and also just watching what my parents had, with very, very highly respectable careers. I just thought that there was something missing. And what I found it to be was, in my opinion, was, you needed to be an entrepreneur to really have, a certain type of quality of life, not just about making money, but having control, having time.
Right. It's huge.
Not having an employer decide one day, that they're going to let you go. Thank you for your services. So those were all things that I kind of observed in terms of what was going on. And then I made a decision from 2008 that no matter how long it took for me, I would eventually become an entrepreneur and eventually do it full time. And I've been doing it full time for about 5 years now.
Well, thank you and congratulations. And Karen.
Well, it's interesting when I'm sitting back listening to both Mike and Tahira's stories about being authentic or knowing that it's not just about the money and whatnot. I think that for me, the biggest shift came from when I decided what my purpose was here on earth. And it's really about being the best version of myself. So when we talk about courage, for me, it was more about courage to be authentic, to be me. And then that led to another decision about something. And I think that for me, it wasn't always just directed at career-wise or what that was going to look like, but just how can I become the best version of me? What is it going to take? And to get really clear on that, and then making little decisions each and every day that led me to being an entrepreneur and to being self-employed and things like that. But I don't think that that was the driving force behind it. It was more about to be who I am and who I was meant to be, and to live that authentic life. And it's interesting, those little decisions that you make, that I've made, I guess.
They lead to the bigger
and
decisions.
then how they became a little bit easier and a little bit easier. So when it did come to be, and it's not so scary, I think. I mean, it still is. Like when I decided to leave my job of 22 years, I was in tears for 2 days, with my 15-year-old giving me my little pep talks. You know, you got this, keep going. But I don't think that fear piece ever really leaves. I think that we just get better at managing it and knowing that it will be okay. Whatever happens, everything will always be okay. And if it doesn't work out, then you get back on the horse and take a different road, a different path, and go down that one and see where that takes you.
I think when I'm listening to all of you guys with that whole decision piece, and Karen, you put it more from a spiritual context of, you know, being the best version of yourself and leveraging our talents in our chosen careers. I think when you're true to who you are, everything kind of lines up. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to put a tremendous amount of work into it. Like you guys each made decisions that were personal but true to you, and it has to work. Like it just, there's no way for it to go anywhere but working, right? Because you're committed to it because it's true to who you are. So
I think that for me, I can say that it's, when looking back and thinking, you know, oh, how's this going to work? Is this going to work? And then looking in the past and seeing how I had those thoughts before about something else in my life, and to see what happened because of that, and say, you know what, it always works out. It doesn't necessarily always work out exactly how I've planned it. Very rarely exactly how I've planned it, but it always works out, and then creates this vision that maybe I didn't have, and then you can build upon that.
right.
So I do believe that things are always working out the way that they're supposed to work out.
Right. Yes, I can agree with that there. I just, you know, I want to touch upon, you know, something, Mike, that you said that I know that for myself, I resonated with corporations telling you, you know, they can let you go. And mine was like, you know, when I'm ready to be a mom, did I want a corporation telling me that I couldn't take time off if my child was sick? You know, making decisions for my life for the sake of a paycheck. And I remember thinking, if I got to work a 90-hour work week to make my own decisions and to be able to have that freedom, you know, so yes, it is beyond the money. It's that personal freedom of making choices. So everything is a choice that is driven by you and not somebody else. I felt that if I was a failure, it was my, you know, at least I was accountable for it. If I was succeeding, at least I was accountable for it. And I think that meant more to me than having to stay.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And some people, I mean, most people, when you work corporate, you know, it's always everybody else's fault, right? So it's the next team's fault, it's the manager's fault. It's, you know, the timing of the meeting, it's the location. I mean, once you know, make this leap and you decide to go all in, as you know, everyone here has done, really, every morning you wake up is really only one person to blame. So for those of individuals that are not used to that, you know, definitely maybe do a self-assessment first before doing or deciding to do, you know, something like this.
Right. Yes. Because not everybody has the risk tolerance level. I say, as much as you think that you're not you're not a risk taker, Mike. You have to take your risk tolerance level has to be a little bit higher
That's right.
than an average in order to go to your own. And to hear, each of you individually, I resonate on so many levels, because, I had close family members that have passed, and, it was those light bulb moments where you're like, okay, what am I really doing? Like, why am I not living my own truth? Why am I not taking my own chances? And why am I living for, and it comes down to just no different than what I just said to Mike, and just in a different area of your life, is why am I living for everybody else than living for myself? Like, at the end of, I said this in one of my conversations, a couple conversations ago, that I was actually able to see me on my deathbed thinking that I was going to live with regret. And did I want to do that?
Right. I mean, I could totally resonate with even what Mike said and you said, like working for a corporation, working for a company. I mean, from my experience, having 45 clients on my caseload, and you try to take a sick day and they're like, well, you can't. Right. I mean, like,
yeah.
Now, where do you think you stand here in this corporation? Are you just a number, or am I going to take, like you said, a risk, and just say that I can do this. I can do this on my own. I can stand on my 2 feet. I'm able to do this. I'm not afraid. I mean, we all make mistakes. The big guys make mistakes. The little guys make mistakes, and even in the in between. So at the end of the day, we can't. I mean, from my experience, I wasn't afraid to fall. It's just how I got up this time.
Right.
And I always live by the motto, as you know, I would always say, God's not going to do me dirty like this. So, I got my back and he's got my back. So let's do this.
It is a famous saying of hers. She's like, yeah, he ain't going to do me dirty like that.
No, he's not. He's definitely not. So we're just going to keep going.
And I say that back to her all the time. I'm like, he ain't going to do me dirty like that.
He's not. He's not. So if I believe it and I keep that energy and focus into having abundance in my life, I mean, what's going to stop it?
Right.
Nothing.
Right. I agree with that. And it's, when you look at it from, Karen, you had mentioned like being the best version of yourself. When you're in a position to, and not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. So anybody of you guys out there, this just happens to be us, but it's having the courage to be your best and most powerful self, even if you are working for somebody. So let me put that little disclaimer there that not everybody's going to jump out and go start their own practice and profession. But in this arena, I just find that we're able to impact lives. I'm a visionary. So when I'm working for somebody, I just find that I'm stifled on somebody else's vision, and you want to help it, but you're stuck. So you're not able to, I'm a creative person. I like to see what's possible. And when I'm working for somebody, all of a sudden it's like, I've got limitations. And that's hard for me because I don't do well with limitations. And I don't know if anybody relates to that, but I just,
for sure.
It's funny that you should say that. I was just going to say, it's funny that you should say that, limitations, because as you were speaking, that's the word that came to my mind, was that when you're working for somebody else, there's limitations. Or even when you're stuck in the place of fear, there's limitations. There's a thought process of what if this fails, versus the perception of, well, what if this succeeds, right? So it's just changing that mindset of, well, what happens if? Well, what happens if it does succeed, as opposed to always going to that negative piece of it. What happens if I'm able to spend more time with my family, or whatever that looks like. But I think the openness is the openness to the possibilities of what could be, versus the fear of it. Right.
Absolutely. And Mike, I'm just going to touch up on something here that we had a conversation out offline, and I'd asked your permission if I could share it. You had there's when I'm looking at, Tahira, you, Karen, and you, Mike, there are characteristics that the three of you guys have, and that's belief in yourselves. And what struck me with that is, Mike, you had made a comment to me that a family member was suing you. And I said, how did you feel about that? Like, I've been devastated, heart had been crushed, right? And you're like, and you laughed even in the conversation with me like you did now. And you're like, no, I was all right. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that must have been so traumatizing. And you said, no. And I said, well, why? And you said, because I already knew that I could do it. I knew where the stats were. Like that belief in yourself when we are going on that road is bar none. Like once you believe in yourself, you're unstoppable.
And that's, I mean, absolutely. You know, I get a lot of people ask me if they should jump into real estate, whether it be, and usually that conversation is around becoming a realtor to service clients. And they always ask me if it's a good idea. And my short answer is always, if it works. If it works, it was a great idea. And if it didn't work, well, you know, I mean, I don't know, like no one really has a crystal ball to, and even our stories are unique to us. You know, my story, you know, I went into something at the right timing of the right opportunity. So those things aligned, and there were things that I had to do on my end as well. But I mean, you know, with the family member that threatened to sue me, so they didn't actually sue me, but they said they would sue me, was actually my mother, and that conversation took place simply because of her legal background, being a real estate lawyer. So she, you know, when I started investing, I had no capital. So when you don't have money, the next source of money is OPM, other people's money. So my parents had a home; they had equity in their home. So you know, I'm a salesperson by trade and profession. Sat down with my parents. I said, hey, you know, I have a really good idea. We should start investing in real estate in Toronto, and these are the reasons why. These are the analysis and so forth. My mom said no, and she gave me her reasons. And my dad was open-minded to it. My mom took a trip for 2 years. And in those 2 years, I convinced my dad to go into the equity of the home and to start investing. Now, during that time, 2 years later, my mom came back. And once she figured out, because she knew my dad was not that type of person to on his own go and take these action steps with a financial advisor and so forth. So she knew from the jump that I had to be the individual that spearheaded it. So she called me and she said, look, you know, you have X amount of time. If this doesn't work, this is going to be the consequence of your actions. And I laughed about it because at the time I knew that, you know, we kind of foresaw what was going on in Toronto now. We foresaw it 10 years ago because we were looking at not just the local economy in terms of what was going on. You know, we were looking internationally. I went to U of T, and while I was there, I saw international students from all over the world come in there, and they were spending 4 times the amount to be there for school. And that gave me, you know, my first perspective of what international money and what immigration policies could really do to a market. So with those kind of, you know, and it was very limited in terms of my understanding, but I kind of knew enough and I had a belief enough. And also I had a friend who was already had results as well. So all those things to me allowed me to believe that I already done some type of due diligence. I wasn't just coming out here with just a random story, you know, hey, let's go buy Bitcoins because my Uber driver said it was a great idea. You know, like I did due diligence, you know,
Right.
Across the way. So I was ready to live with whatever the result.
Right.
But
And I get
it all worked out.
and it did. And when you say you were willing to do the work, you know, I look at you, Tahira, when I know the behind the scenes of all the work that you put into it, and you know, of doing that and the belief in yourself, just kind of segueing into Tahira with Mike's story there. And you know, you've had some resistance too of people maybe not understanding why you're taking the chances that you're taking, and not necessarily going into with your degrees, going into, you know, some sort of social work job, so to speak,
Right.
And getting a good pension, you know, the big pension.
Right. No, but I definitely resonated with what Mike was saying, that, and I definitely truly believe that a part of his story, even when he talks about his mom suing him and whatnot, is he didn't take it personally. He was
Oh,
like,
wow,
listen,
yeah.
I know that this is going to work. And I definitely resonated with that because I totally live my life that way too. that you can have your opinions or whatnot, but I'm not going to take that personally to stop or block me from getting the things that I want to get or succeed in.
So the three of you have a characteristics of focus. So when we talk about the mindset of what it takes to have courage, I don't know, is it courage or is it just the mindset that A, there's a belief in yourself, but B, you're focused on, and you know, you're zeroed in on what you want, and there's nothing really, you're not looking left or right, you're just zeroed in straight ahead. You know, does that resonate with any of you guys?
I think it has to do with a lot of also our energy. I mean, when you talk about positive and negative energy, your energy doesn't know if it's positive or negative. Something very simple for a quick example, I did a Secret Santa and all my energy was focused on, my energy and focus was on, I don't want to get this person. I do not want to get this person. And I realized that all my energy and focus was built up on not getting that person. And obviously when I opened the name, it was the person I didn't want to get. And that is such a small example of what our minds can do.
Right.
So if we set out on our focus on energy into positivity and looking at the things that, okay, what do I need to get there? What is my mindset? What is my energy? What is my focus? I mean, you're limitless. You're literally limitless.
I totally resonate with that.
I think that I would just add to that. Sorry, I was just going to say what I would add to that is that the focus or the getting clear on what it is that you want, that any attention that you're giving to something is where you're going, right? You can't have an attention over here and not think that you're going to end up there. And so when I got really clear on what I wanted to do, then whatever came into my life, I knew that I had to deal with it to ultimately get and grows as you conquer the first stage of the first trial or the next challenge and the next challenge, and your belief grows and grows and grows. I don't think that you just kind of wake up one day and say, okay, I believe in myself, here I am. I think that you have to have some successes to build that and build that insight into yourself, that awareness to say, okay, look, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And these little steps are going to get me ultimately where I want to go. But I don't think that you've heard in anyone's story here that it happened overnight.
Right.
That there's always some background stuff. There's always the preparation of being ready, like getting ready to be ready, right? Like ready for whatever opportunity that brings. You might not have the opportunity right now, but it's about developing the characteristics and the mindset and the belief and the courage and all of these things, maybe through other events in your life that then bring you to the opportunity, and you're say, okay, I'm ready because I've already learned these other lessons that have brought me here to allow me to be successful.
Right. Right.
Just to hop on what Karen said. Years and years ago, I did something called a dream test by John Maxwell. Very, very simple. It's just a list of questionnaires, and he dives into, the reason why you're pursuing that path, that passion, that career, and he really lets you get in front of it. Was the dream your idea or your parents' idea? That was like one of the first questions that I remember that always stood out to me in the test. But there was and one of the questions had to do with your results. So I was fighting becoming a real estate broker, and the reason I was fighting is because there was, in my head, logically, I didn't see how I would compete with 50,000 people. So, but when I was looking at my results through the test, I was actually like, through that test, I was seeing, you're actually able to generate results, because I was referring businesses to my friends that were real estate agents at the time. And so I was able to gauge, if I were doing this full time, what would that look like in terms of time, in terms of effort, in terms of results. And so after years of doing that, so I started off just really referring businesses for at least 5 years. And one day I did the math on it, and I said, you know what, it makes sense for me to take this on board. And so there's little wins that I got along the way for me to gauge to say, okay, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at this, and I can get results in this. Now, how do I amplify it, add more to it, and build this as a business full out?
And what I'm hearing with all three of you, and I'm going to sum it up like this, is all three of you have that mindset of openness from the very beginning. You guys are in different ways. You guys are open to learning, like little sponges that, people introduce you to DITS, you went on seminars. So you took the time to invest in yourselves first and take chances and understand, I'm gonna pick on Mike from the perspective he says his risk tolerance level is low, but really all three of you have really high risk tolerance levels because you are taking the steps to get there. Karen, you talked about, making sure that you're in alignment with yourself. Tahira, you've reassessed all the situations and you're constantly, I just know you personally, that you're constantly doing personal work on yourself. Mike, you said you've been to seminars and you guys have all invested in yourselves. So, and you're so open. And then to add to that, there comes a point where it was said to me, and I don't remember who said it, I got to find my notes who said it, but one of you had said that you said yes to everything until you didn't need to say yes to everything. Right. And I think that is so important when you are succeeding in anything.
I didn't say that, but I think that's deep.
I think I might have said that to you. Yeah.
Is it you?
Yeah, because I had a conversation with a 20-year-old earlier today, and he was asking me the same, what he should do. And my answer to him was, you're young. This is your time to say yes to every single thing. There's really, unless, there's ethics and it's just, it conflicts with where you are and your integrity, then really there's no reason to, you get free information, you get to see what's new in the marketplace, businesses and so forth. Even me, myself, this week alone, I probably sat down with 3-4 things to kind of hear what's new, what's a new idea. And within 5 minutes, usually I can say yes or no. So it doesn't like prolong or doesn't drag out, because I know what it is I'm looking for. To speak to what Tahira said about focus, in real estate, I don't need an opportunity that deals with cards. Right. The verticals just don't work together. But yes, but especially in my 20s, I said yes to every single thing. I was thankful to people that presented opportunities to me, even if it wasn't for me, but I definitely said yes to everything. And today I say no a lot more than I say yes, but that's because I found my lane and my path and I just kind of focused on it.
And I think it's so powerful when we find our lane and we know that path, and it hits home on so many fronts. And I put it out there, and I'm encouraging us women out there that we have families and we think we can't because we've got our families on the go. I was a mother, 2 kids, and there has to be a motivation behind it, that there's got to drive you, that no matter what's going on in your life, that it is a priority for you. And there's got to be, what if I do this, what their outcome will be, the benefits to the family, benefits to myself. And I'm telling you, it would be 3 o'clock in the morning and I've got my, half sleeping, after all day with the kids, and I'm reading books, listening to audios in the background while I'm cooking. So there's got to be a drive and a motivation. So saying yes to everything and just being a sponge, but letting nothing interfere with you finding out what that is for yourself.
I think that when you're saying yes to everything, and Mike, you were saying that in your 20s, you were saying yes to everything. I think there's a great value in saying yes to things and realizing that it's not for you. Mm-hmm. That experience of saying, oh yeah, you know what, that I said yes and I've experienced this, but you know what, this is really not a good fit for me. I think that there's great value in that, in learning about that, as opposed to just you're going to find what it is that you want to do right away. That you have to say yes to these things and be exposed to different.
Absolutely, for sure.
So I'm just gonna switch a little bit and, just ask ourselves, like, what are, when you finally got into alignment with who you are and what you're doing, how much quicker did things start to move for you guys?
Well, I'll start off that one. I think that once I went with who I am, there was no turning back. It was just day in and day out, a next step. But without that alignment, it was like canoeing upstream. It's like going against the current, trying desperately hard to make things work. When I found my alignment, all of a sudden it was going with the current, and things just appear. It just starts to become really, really easy. And when something happens, and you can sit back and say, well, where did that come from, and how did that happen, and know that, like, somebody's got your back, like that there is. For me, I believe in a higher power, and I just believe that once I got into that alignment, that higher power was there for me to say, okay, well, now you figured yourself out, you are living authentically. These are the gifts that happen when you live authentically. And here it is today. And you wake up and here it is today. And you wake up and here it is today. And they just keep coming and coming. And it blows my mind sometimes about really now how easy it is. Now, I can't say that it was that way all the time, but it just is easy and almost effortless now for myself.
I call us servant leaders.
Mm.
We
but I
serve
think
by
that
leadership.
I think that when I got really clear on what it meant to be in service, that was powerful for me. That it wasn't necessarily about me. It was about me living my authentic self and how I could serve my community, my family, my country, my world. How is it that I'm on this earth, and what is my job to serve the greater good? And that's freedom once you get to that point. For me, it has. That's the word I would use. It's just freedom and ease to know that that it's all taken care of, and I just got to make the right next decision, just that one next decision. And it's fun. It really is.
It is. I'm with you. So do you guys consider, Tahira and Mike, do you guys consider yourself servant leaders, or like, have you ever thought about that when you in the roles that you play?
I don't classify. I am. I've depending on what Karen was saying, that I feel that as I have learned to become so authentic in who I am, removing the things that don't serve me anymore just became so easy. I'm like, no, I don't like that. No, this doesn't serve purpose here. No, this is my direction. So me saying no became a lot easier in order to for more opportunities to come my way, for the ability now to say yes to the things that I know that serve me well.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that don't serve me just came it just came so easily to just say that, okay, this is it. I don't need this in my life anymore. And and those things taught lessons, and they're not just gone, but they were just lessons, and now it doesn't serve me as much anymore.
Right. And what did it do for all of your, well, Mike, I'm going to let you touch upon that, actually, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, your first question was if it was easy once you dive in, and for me it was, because as we kind of spoke about today, once your energy is kind of aligned with what you want to do and what you were kind of put here to do, and whatever that looks like for everybody, it's a lot easier to wake up, be excited, go to work, make phone calls, knock on doors, get the rejections, and get up, and go at it again. Um, versus when you're kind of going into do it for other reasons other than, meeting your need. And it's okay to do it for someone else's, if you're working in someone else's company and you're building with somebody in, whether it be a partnership or you're an employee, as long as you're 100% and you're giving it 100% every single day, you're going to find some kind of fulfillment. For a lot of people, it's just hard for them to give that 100% every single day because they know, they're still going to get a paycheck at the end of the week. Or, it's not theirs. So they might not go, 100% all in. In terms of being a servant leader, I had a situation a few weeks ago where somebody wanted me to go a little bit out of town for them to look at a new construction project. And when times are really, really good in the Toronto real estate market, in the new construction space, a lot of developers, for whatever reason, they decide they don't want to pay realtors. So this happened to be one of the scenarios with this particular client, and we did have to go out of town. And I decided, what, whether I'm getting paid or not, I'm still gonna go out there with them because what they're about to do, and they're friends of mine as well. Late 50s, early 60s. We met through a charity that myself and some guys started about 10 years ago, and we still keep in touch. So the fact that I wasn't gonna get paid on it, it didn't deter me from wanting to go out and to serve. So long story, decided to get in the car, drove out there, helped them out to make sure, they knew what they were, the reputation of the builder's past, what they were looking to get, what it looked like in terms of commitments, closing costs, yada, yada, yada. And the representative for the builder called me later on and said, you know what, we're not supposed to pay you on this, but I'm going to make a request to have you paid on this. So, going into something without the motive and the intention of just looking at it for yourself. And again, it's easier when you really find something you enjoy doing and you really want to make sure that, people you care about, they're
Are succeeding.
are succeeding as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to come back. So
Mhm.
it's definitely going to, and as Karen mentioned earlier on, you see, the results in your life and little things and in big things as well. That was just something that just, jumped out in the middle of this conversation just because it was just very recent. And it just gave me a good reminder, as to the reason why I actually do this. It's not just, what's in it for me, but it's really making sure that, the interests of those people that I care about and that I'm helping and I'm servicing, that their interests get met. And by default, my interests usually, not all the time, but for the most part, the intention is at least there.
Right. You had no expectations. You
That's
went
right.
into it, you gave your heart, you had no expectations. And, as much as when we got into all of our respective fields, really, I think we had a willingness, we believed in ourselves and that we were willing to put in the work. I don't know how you felt, but I know even in my own life, even starting this talk show, I had no expectations. You share and just see the way it comes back, right? And so far, I've been fortunate with it. So, and that's what I heard there was that you didn't have an expectation and it delivered you right back. Like I say, God delivers you back better than you expected, right? You ended up getting paid anyways, right?
And you're doing a fantastic job as well, Tanya.
Thank you. Thank you for all of you guys. So I want to touch, we've got like 15 minutes left. And this is a piece that I think is very, very big for a lot of people that I really want to give it some time to talk about. But a lot of times when we are solid within our souls, and I don't know, like when I launched this talk show, I'm going to tell you that I didn't tell a single solitary soul. I didn't have anybody in the background helping me. When I knew what I knew, and I had no expectations, no of the outcome, I just knew that I was going to start a talk show. And I sat quietly on the back end and said nothing. And I always say when that vision for you is greater and when you are at peace with it and you, I don't even know the words that I'm looking for, but it just, you work in silence and you say nothing. You're not looking for anybody's approval. You're not looking to invite anybody to, should I do it? You're not asking for anybody's decision-making process, nothing. You just run with it. Can any of you guys offer any insight into how you move about when you are convicted about something? Do you normally share it or do you usually just hustle it? Tahira and Mike use the same words all the time. Hustle. I see it on Mike's postings and Tahira uses it with me all the time. Tahira is saying it's hustle in silence.
Yeah.
And actually, when I saw the word hustle on Mike's feed, I reached out to him right away and I was like, right. So, do you guys operate from that space? All of you?
I believe I do. I mean, like you said, I always say hustle in silence. I don't, for me personally, I feel like I don't need permission anymore. I'm not looking for opinions anymore. It's me. I have my own back. Like I said, God's not going to do me dirty. Let's do this. I'm not afraid.
The courage,
So,
right?
Right. So now it's just one step forward and those small successes, just like Mike and Karen were talking about. And you'll see where you get. Be open to opportunities and release everything that's negative, and you're on your way. I mean, once you're not looking for that permission, I feel like it does minimize the fear. So now you're just open to receiving.
And there's no expectation of it either at the same time. It's
No.
just, this is what it is. This is what my heart calls me to do. And this is just how we're going to roll with it. And I'm going to tell you why I asked you guys initially, like, how did things move about for you, is because I know in my own life, things just flowed. Like whatever I needed to move to the next stage just really just showed up with little effort. And the resistances that I had was always because I was moving on the wrong path. And when I actually examined it, I was just like, okay, well, that's actually, when you say yes to everything, or Mike, you had mentioned, or you're saying yes to everything, and then you get 5 things presented to you, well, all of a sudden I'm having something that's going to derail me. And it's not. And the minute I start to get resistance, I walk away from it. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't align with the vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you talk about resistance. I sometimes call that redirection.
Okay.
That life is putting something in your path that just redirects you back to the path that you're supposed to be on. It's about perspective for me of ultimately I'm going to get where I'm going, and not looking for, when you're asked if we're hustling in silence. Talk about words. Hustle to me brings like, that's not a good word for me, but it's interesting how different words, are good for different people, right? Like to me, hustle is like, is me trying and really working hard. Whereas it's more of an ease. I don't necessarily tell people about my larger vision of what I'm creating in my life. They'll see it. They'll see it when the time is right. But I'm not looking for validation from anybody. And I think that I was before. Permission is the word that was used earlier, but validation is that this is my life. And, I came into it alone. And although I'm a mom and a wife and a sister and have all of these hats that I wear, I'm going to leave this world by myself as well. And I want to be able to look back and say that I did the best to be the best version of me. And I will be the judge on success and not success, and not anybody else. So somebody else might view what I do as a failure. If I look back at all of the things that I've done to get me to this point, and somebody could say, well, you didn't succeed at this, you didn't, do this, or you didn't do this. But I took lessons and learned them to ultimately get me to here, and here onto where I'm going. Foundation, and just knowing it all comes back full circle. Belief in myself, belief in my own vision, And then there's no need to necessarily share that with people who potentially are going to tear you down.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
it was when you talked about the permission part of it in the very beginning of my life. I told everybody, looking for that validation and that approval and that permission. Hey, and you share your ideas, and all of a sudden you didn't realize I'm a visionary. So anybody that knows me knows that I've got some crazy ideas that I love, and I love that about myself. That I'm an out of the box thinker. But every time I present those ideas, people's limitations would be projected and I would be deflated and I would think something was wrong. And then when you went ahead and did it anyways, because I'm one of those that, feel the fear and do it anyways. So when I went ahead and I pressed through, all of a sudden I noticed, I don't know if any of you guys experienced this, everybody became experts on some things that they wouldn't even do themselves. I was like, guys, really? Well, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And what do you think of this? And I was like, guys, you won't even get, why don't you get on the court? You're the 20,000 people in the stands cheering on and getting mad when the 3-point shot doesn't go in the net. And so why don't you get on the court and train with me and train every day, develop the skills, get the tools, dribble the ball with me down the court. Let me pass it over to you. We can banter back and forth and get it that 3-pointer in. Or you can do your layup, but please stay in the stand and keep your mouth shut and eat your popcorn.
I love the basketball analogies. In terms of me personally, I'm definitely a hustle in silence, just by personality, and also just because social media is there's just a lot of noise.
It's huge.
Not, and conversation I was having, as I mentioned, I was having a conversation with a gentleman that was 20 years old. And what I told him was, I'm so happy that, social media wasn't as big as it was back then for me, which was like 10 years ago when I probably, when I made a decision to say, this is the path I'm going to go, regardless of how long it takes. It was easier for me to stay silent. And whereas today, I think there's a prematureness to want to promote a certain image, lifestyle, success, and we see it definitely a lot with like being an entrepreneur today is kind of like being a rapper 20 years ago, where every young person wanted to be a rapper, and then now being an entrepreneur has kind of become like that cool factor where everybody wants to become an entrepreneur. But I tell a lot of people, you'll probably make more money working at 9 to 5 than you will statistically as an entrepreneur. Those are just facts. It takes a level of dedication and focus that obviously the people on this panel know about for you to be able to achieve. But there's no shame in working a job, especially now. Most employers, I believe, they understand that, especially living in the GTA, you probably do need a side hustle, a plan B, or even a plan C in addition to that. So most employers, I believe, are open to the idea and are aware that, a lot of their employees also have other things in their lives that are going on. But for me, it's always important for me to just, and the last group of people I share with are close family and friends. Whatever that idea is, or whatever decisions I decide that I want to make, just because, 15 years ago, nobody knew me as an entrepreneur. They knew me as a soccer player. So 15 years ago, 10 years ago, if I'm going to tell anybody, hey, I'm looking to take this path and this course as an entrepreneur, right away, they're going to take those memories, those expectations of me as, the student athlete that they've known me for 20 plus years, all of a sudden wanted to go into business, and they're going to give me their reserves about it and so forth.
Your identity was attached to soccer.
Pardon me?
Your identity was attached to soccer.
Identity was attached to soccer and being a soccer player. So to rebrand that in their minds was always more work than it needed to be, versus going to strangers that that I'm just meeting for the first time today, and I can say and be anything that I want to be, and everybody's open-minded to it, and they're open to receiving it. So especially when I when I was starting in my different ventures, my immediate family, I learned I always have to be or even when if I did share with them, I was never really to get their opinion. It was really just so that they don't hear it from somewhere else. You know, hey, we heard that you started this and you didn't share with us. Oh yes, you know, so let me just get it out of the way, let you know.
I'm
where-
notorious for that.
you know, and again, it's to really just protect my peace.
Right.
You know, it's the holidays, from spending the holidays with you. I don't want to spend holidays here and your reasonings and your businesses that failed and your experience in the real estate market when you invested in the 80s and interest rates were 10% and what happened then. You know, those things have no relevance to the research, the decisions, and, you know, what I'm looking to do right now. You know, I thank you for sharing, but that's really all I'm really requesting for it to share. We're not here to really debate and see what direction is the best path for me.
And that goes to being solid within, just knowing. It's interesting with the whole money aspect of it. For me in this, I never worry about how the money is going to flow when I'm going into this, as long as I'm leading with my heart. It'll always show up for me. I never worry. I stay true to who I am through it. Tara, I just want to give you a moment to add to that for yourself. You know, the hustling in silence, so to speak, you know, what does that look like for you?
I agree with Mike. I have a huge family, and even if you tell them ideas, they're here to support you. Absolutely. There's always, but maybe you should do this, but maybe you should. And then I decided, well, I'm pretty sure I'm the expert and you guys just have probably maybe even great opinions on it, but I'm going to make the ultimate decision. So I decided that, again, like hustling in silence, that again, I didn't need that validation. I didn't need that permission. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to be afraid. I know that I'm good at these things. These are my skills. And I'm just going for it.
Yes.
So it was just easier to be silent and make it happen for myself.
Well, because at some point, aren't you realizing, all three of you, and we've got like 2 minutes before we wrap up, but don't you realize that you're not having that conversation within your head? So why are you having it with anybody else outside of you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I was like, guys, like, we're not debating this. Like, this is a done deal. My soul is conceded.
Put yourself out there.
That what? Sorry?
I was just going to say why. I was just going to say, why would you put yourself out there to hear somebody else's limitations and limiting thoughts?
And that's what it is. It's
because when somebody sees you, sorry, I was just going to say, when somebody sees you being successful or stepping outside your box, your comfort zone, then it almost asks them to ask themselves, well, how come if she can do it, how come I'm not doing it?
That's right.
Right? Because people are stuck in their
limitations. It's easier
limitations.
sometimes for other people to pull you back than
into
to
their
allow
limitation.
you to grow.
Yes. So guys, I just want to read some of the comments this evening that somebody's writing in saying, Tahira, I love that God's not going to do me dirty. I also have somebody writing in here. I love what Karen just said about keeping things within. And we are, she's somebody saying that we're talking about this today, but I don't know what that is. So guys, thank you for joining us this evening and taking us in your mindset and in what it takes to have courage. I think that you guys have a tremendous amount of courage to do what you do. We didn't even touch up on it because I've spoken to 3 of you guys individually. I know who you guys are individually. I didn't even touch on half the notes from all of you guys. You guys have offered the audience with just really what goes on with you guys making decisions where you started out with. And I think it comes down to believing in yourself, knowing what you want, being very open to everything in the very beginning until you understand what it is that you're in alignment with, that's true to you, and then staying focused on that and progressing forward, keeping it within and just moving forward. So thank you guys for joining us this evening. Thank you, audience, for tuning in on another edition of Tanya Talks. Please join us on Wednesday, where we will be doing another segment on living with gratitude. I'm looking forward to that one as well. So living every day with gratitude. If you're looking for breakthrough conversations that are going to clear the path and take you to the next level for your life, I welcome you to visit TanyaRicketts.com so that you can get started. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Tanya Talks 4 and like us as well. All right, everybody. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.